Zechariah chapter 3 in the King James Version, KJV, is a highly symbolic and profound passage that gives a glimpse into the spiritual cleansing and future role of Israel's high priest, Joshua. This chapter portrays a courtroom scene in which Joshua, as high priest, represents the nation of Israel. Here, Satan accuses Joshua, but God intervenes to rebuke Satan and to purify Joshua, signifying both personal and national restoration. Verse-by-verse commentary. Verse 1, And he shewed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. This opening verse sets the scene as a heavenly courtroom, where Joshua is depicted as standing before the angel of the Lord, likely a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ in the Old Testament. Satan, whose name means accuser or adversary, stands at Joshua's right hand, the position of accusation. Joshua here is not just an individual but a representation of Israel, which was being accused of sinfulness after returning from Babylonian exile. Verse 2, And the Lord said unto Satan, The Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee, is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? In response to Satan's accusations, the Lord intervenes on Joshua's behalf, rebuking Satan twice. The phrase "a brand plucked out of the fire" suggests that Joshua, and Israel, was saved from destruction, indicating God's mercy and determination to preserve and restore his chosen people despite their sinfulness. Verse 3, Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments, and stood before the angel. Joshua's filthy garments symbolize the sin and impurity of Israel as a nation. The Hebrew term here conveys a deep, even loathsome, degree of uncleanness, underscoring the nation's need for cleansing. Despite being the high priest, who normally wore holy garments, Joshua's appearance in this vision shows the stark reality of Israel's spiritual state. Verse 4, And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with change of raiment. Here, the Lord commands the removal of Joshua's filthy garments, symbolizing the removal of iniquity. In exchange, Joshua is given a change of raiment, representing a new, righteous standing before God. This act reflects God's forgiveness and the restoration of Israel's priestly role, promising a fresh start for the nation. Verse 5, And I said, Let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. The fair mitre was the high priest's headpiece, bearing the words "Holiness to the Lord." By restoring the symbol of consecration, God is declaring Joshua fit to serve in his priestly role once more. This is not only a personal transformation but also reflects God's renewed covenant relationship with Israel. Verses 6-7, And the angel of the Lord protested unto Joshua, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, If thou wilt walk in my ways, and if thou wilt keep my charge, then thou shalt also judge my house, and shalt also keep my courts, and I will give thee places to walk among these that stand by. God gives Joshua a conditional promise, offering him a place among God's court if he remains faithful to his ways. This underscores that while grace has been granted, Israel's role is also conditional on obedience. As high priest, Joshua has a vital role in upholding the holiness of Israel's worship and their covenant with God. Verse 8, Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, thou, and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at, for, behold, I will bring forth my servant the branch. This verse introduces a messianic prophecy. The branch is a title used for the Messiah, symbolizing a new shoot from the line of David that will restore the nation and fulfill the promises of God. This foreshadows Jesus Christ as the ultimate high priest and king, who will bring true and complete redemption. Verse 9, For behold the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes, behold, I will engrave the graving thereof, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. The stone with 7 eyes may signify God's all-seeing wisdom and omnipresence or the completeness of his knowledge. This verse further emphasizes God's promise to completely and swiftly remove the iniquity of the land, a prophecy seen as fulfilled through the atoning sacrifice of Christ. Verse 10, In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, shall ye call every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. This final verse envisions a time of peace and security, symbolized by the imagery of each person dwelling peacefully under the vine and under the fig tree. This points to a future messianic kingdom where God's people will live in harmony and prosperity under his reign. Themes and significance. 1. Spiritual cleansing. Joshua's transformation from wearing filthy garments to being clothed in clean, priestly robes speaks to the process of forgiveness and sanctification, a theme that resonates with the concept of grace in the New Testament. 2. Messianic prophecy. The reference to the branch foreshadows the coming of Jesus Christ, who will be both priest and king, uniting these roles in his person to offer salvation and justice. 3. God's faithfulness to Israel. God's rebuke of Satan and his preservation of Israel demonstrate his covenantal loyalty to his people, even when they have faltered in their faithfulness. 4. Victory over accusation. This chapter highlights God's power to nullify Satan's accusations, underscoring the theme of divine advocacy and protection for his chosen ones. 5. The conditional role of leadership. Joshua's promise to remain in God's favor if he obeys the commandments signifies that leadership in God's kingdom is based on faithfulness, a principle that applies to all spiritual leadership. Conclusion. Zechariah 3 serves as a powerful reminder of God's mercy, his plan for salvation, and his ultimate sovereignty in rebuking Satan's accusations. The chapter moves from sin to cleansing, from accusation to justification, and from hopelessness to the messianic hope, pointing to Jesus Christ, who fulfills these roles as both advocate and redeemer.